everyone, my name is Katie and I'm an educator here at Zoo New England, and I wanted to thank all of you for letting us participate in the Bread and Roses Festival this year. Now, Zoo New England is both Stone Zoo and Franklin Park Zoo, and I'm at Stone Zoo in Stoneham today, and I wanted to introduce you to some animals that we have, and these are animals that are going to be found all around the world. Now, I wanted to start off with a species that's found right here in Massachusetts, and this is Alfredo. She is an eastern screech owl, and they're found anywhere on the east side of the Rocky Mountains. Now, a question we typically get about Alfredo is asking if she is a baby. Now, she is very small. She only weighs half a pound. If you bake at home, that's around the same weight as 2 sticks of butter. But she is full grown. She is considered to be an adult. She's 1 year old, and this is as big as eastern screech owls really get. Now, there is one species of owl here in Massachusetts that's a little bit smaller, and that is the saw-whet owl, but eastern screech owls are a close second. Now, they have some really cool adaptations that I wanted us to talk about. So first, you might notice these 2 tufts sticking out on top of Alfredo's head, and a lot of folks think that those are ears. They're actually called ear tufts. They're made of just feathers, and their ears are holes slightly lower under all those feathers. Their ears are asymmetrical, so one ear is located higher than the other, and that's to help owls best triangulate and figure out where a noise is coming from. The ear tufts are really beneficial because they help to funnel all the noises down into their ears. Now, you might be wondering why owls need to have such a good sense of hearing, and that's so they can find their food. Owls are carnivorous. They only eat meat, and even small owls like Alfredo will eat mice and insects and other small vertebrates like maybe a frog or a snake. So that sense of hearing is really important so they can hear their prey. They also have really incredible eyesight, and their eyes, they have more vision at night than they do color vision, and that helps them sense movement really, really well. Now, while we're talking about their eyes, I wanted to talk about something that's really unique to owls. You might notice as I turn Alfredo, her head kind of stays fixed looking at something. So owls cannot move their eyes side to side like people do. If I wanted to look to my left or to my right, I could move my eyes independently from my head, but owls can't do that. Their eyes are fixed in their sockets. So if they want to look around, they have to move their entire head. Now, to help them do that, owls have extra vertebrae, and that helps them move their head a whole 270 degrees. So they can't move their head all the way around, but just about. So it's another really cool adaptation that they have. Now, the last thing I want to talk about are the coverings that Alfredo has all over her body. Owls have really special feathers that are unique from other birds. Since they do the majority of their hunting at night, and they're usually hunting animals that have really great hearing as well. If you think of a mouse and the really big ears that they have, owls need to be super sneaky. So their feathers, if you look at them closely, they're actually fringed. They have all this extra fringe on their feathers that really helps to break up the noise, so they have an almost completely silent flight. It makes them very skilled hunters. Now, if we look at the coloring that Alfredo has as well, that's going to be really helpful in camouflaging. So even though she is a predator species, they do hunt other animals, eastern screech owls are also a prey species. So not only do they need to blend in so they can sneak up on their food, but they need to blend in so they can stay safe from other predators, usually larger owls like a great horned owl. So her coloring is going to help her blend in really, really well to trees and branches and things like that. Now that we've met an animal native here in Massachusetts, I think it's time for us to meet an animal that comes from another part of the world. All right, so next I really wanted us to meet Koopa. And Koopa is a 20-year-old leopard tortoise. Leopard tortoises are native to sub-Saharan Africa. So if you think of environments like a dry savanna or even almost like a desert, that's where you can find leopard tortoises. Just like their name suggests, they have coloring on their body that is a lot like a big cat leopard's. So lots of tan, almost a yellowy color with brown and black spots. And that coloring, just like Alfredo's coloring, is going to help them blend into their environment. So leopard tortoises don't need to blend into trees like Alfredo, the screech owl. Instead, they need to blend into that dry savanna. They do have a lot of predators, including big cats like lions, hyenas, other animals like that. So that camouflage is going to be a really good way for them to stay safe. They're not very fast, so they're going to rely on that instead of speed. Now, if a leopard tortoise is threatened by a predator, you might be able to see they also have really thick scales on their arms and legs. So if they are threatened, after they tuck their head in their shell, they will tuck their arms in and cover their face. Those scales are really thick, so that just adds some added protection to them. Leopard tortoises are herbivores. They only eat plants. And in their natural habitat, they're going to be eating things like succulents and leaves and dry grasses. And here at the zoo, we give Koopa hay every day. She really likes her hay. We also give her leafy greens like romaine and kale. She gets some shredded carrots. And then she gets a special reptile chow that is formulated just for tortoises. Now, a question we get really frequently at the zoo is asking what the difference is between a turtle and a tortoise. Now, there are always exceptions to every rule, but here are some general guidelines that can help you figure out if you're looking at a tortoise or a turtle. Typically, tortoises are going to have more of a domed shell. Their shell is going to come up a lot higher and be rounder. And typically, a turtle is going to have a flatter, more streamlined shell. And that's because tortoises typically spend the majority, if not all of their time on land, and turtles spend a lot of their time typically in the water. If you think of a sea turtle, they're going to have a really flat shell that's going to help them really easily swim in the water. Tortoises, since they are typically on land, they're going to have stubbier legs with some claws. If I turn Koopa around, you might be able to get a good look at those claws. Tortoises will have those for digging for food, digging nests, and typically turtles are going to have webbed feet or even flippers if you think of a sea turtle. Webbed feet and flippers are going to help them swim through the water. And lastly, tortoises are typically herbivores, while turtles are typically omnivores, eating plants and meat, usually insects. So those are some ways that you can help to tell the difference between a turtle and a tortoise. And I hope you learned a little bit more about my friend Koopa here. We have one more animal that we're going to meet, so we'll see who we're meeting next. All right, so here we are in our sloth exhibit, and I am with Lunesta. Lunesta is our female Linnaeus' two-toed sloth, and we also have our male in here as well. His name is Nero. We'll see him in just a minute. Two-toed sloths are native to Central America, and there are actually 6 different sloth species. So there's 4 subspecies of three-toed sloths and 2 subspecies of two-toed sloths. And there's actually a really easy way to tell the difference between a three-toed sloth and a two-toed sloth. All sloths have 3 back toes, so I can tell I'm looking at Lunesta's foot right now because there are 3 back toes. But two-toed sloths only have 2 front toes, so this is one of her hands right here. She just has 2 claws on it. You can get a close-up of her face. Sloths have a really great sense of smell, which is why you might notice her nose looks a lot like a dog's nose. It's really wet. That helps scent particles stick to it to kind of increase that sense of smell. And that's really helpful because they do not have the best eyesight. and they don't have the best hearing as well. So that sense of smell is going to help them find their food. And in their natural habitat, they're going to be eating things like flowers, leaves, bark, fruits, and some vegetables. Here at the zoo, they get fed a diet of lots of leafy greens, sweet potato, apple, carrot, and one of their favorite treats, hard-boiled eggs. So they get hard-boiled eggs as a really great source of protein, and then on occasion we can also give them some grapes. Grapes are really high in sugar, so it's just a special treat for them. Now Nero and Lunesta were paired together through something called a species survival plan, or an SSP. And the whole point of an SSP is to make pairings of individual animals to hopefully breed and have offspring that are genetically diverse. We really want genetic diversity with animals that are in zoos, so we have lots of healthy genetics, and that way if something happens to those wild populations of animals, we can one day, when their habitat is ready, repopulate with animals that have lots of genetic diversity and are really, really healthy. Now, two-toed sloths are really unique, and they're a lot different from many other mammals. So even though they are mammals, they have fur, they're warm-blooded, they have the lowest body temperature of all mammals and also the most variable body temperature. So most of the time, our body temperature is around 98 degrees. With sloths, on a daily basis, it can fluctuate between 70 and 90 degrees. So there's a lot of fluctuation there. They also sun themselves just like reptiles do, and that helps to warm up the bacteria in their stomach so they can digest their food. Now let's go check in on Nero, who's sleeping over here. Nero is our male, and he is 14 years old. And Nero and Lunesta have had 4 offspring together. They've had 2 males and 2 female offspring. If you do come to Stone Zoo, you can see Nero and Lunesta in our sloth habitat, and then their daughter, Siesta, lives just a few exhibits over, and she is housed with our red-rumped agoutis and cotton-top tamarins. They're housed separately because sloths are solitary. They do live by themselves. Nero and Lunesta get along really well, and we're able to keep them together. But in the wild, baby sloths are going to be leaving their moms after 6 months to a year. Siesta is just over a year old, so it was time for her to go off on her own. And Nero is giving us a really cool way to see this adaptation they have for doing everything upside down. So you can see right here his 2 toes in the front. You can also see that his hair is growing kind of opposite a dog or a cat. So if you think of dog or cat fur, it's going to part in the middle of their back and go down their sides. But with sloths, it parts down their belly and grows up their sides like this. And that's because they live in the rainforest. They're upside down. That's going to help water run right off of their coat so they're not soaking wet. Sloth hair is also really unique. If you look at human hair under a microscope, it's going to be shaped in a round shape or like an oval shape. But with sloths, if you look at their fur under a microscope, it's actually shaped like a V. And that divot that runs down the hair is going to collect water and grow algae. So in the wild, sloths are going to have a greenish tint to them, and that's algae growing on their fur. That's really beneficial since they're not very fast, as you can see with Nero, not the fastest animals. That is a really important way for them to camouflage in their environment. So when they curl up, they're a green color, they kind of just look like a ball of moss. Here at the zoo, we have to heat our exhibits, especially in the wintertime. And as you may know, heating air in Massachusetts is kind of on the dry side. So that's why they don't have that greenish tint here at the zoo. From all of us here at Zoo New England and Stone Zoo, we want to say thank you so much for letting us be a part of the Bread and Roses Festival this year. Our zoos are open, so if you're able to come visit, we would love to see you around, and maybe you'll even see some of the animals that we've met today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.